Fishing was the first thing for me that I realized I could really express myself freely. It was kind of a safe place. It was because I was never the best student, but I always knew that I had the capability to focus and stuff because I'd always be able to fish for 8 hours by myself. And, and so, my teachers were like, you need to, be on track and do all this stuff. And you have learning disabilities. And I was like, well, I don't think so. I just think it's more focused on nature and, connecting that way with the world and stuff. So that was kind of my outlook on it.
This is the Tom Roland Podcast. Fascinating stories to amaze, encourage, and inspire you in fishing, fitness, and the outdoors. And we're brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I started this podcast as a way to connect with my friends, people that I admire and respect, and you. It has been a learning journey that's made me a better person, a better fisherman, a better father, and a better athlete. I'm so happy that you're on this journey with me, and I'd love to hear from you with show suggestions, guest suggestions, or questions. The best way to get a hold of me is through text. You can text 305-930-7346 for the fastest response, but if you prefer to email, you can send that to podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. That's a dedicated email address just for the show. If you like this show, you can show your support by posting about it on social media and tagging me. Text the link to a couple of friends that may also enjoy it, and subscribe and leave a 5-star review if you feel like I've earned it. The website is tomrolandpodcast.com, and that is where everything lives. All past shows, you can go and listen to any show. You can look up all the different shows that we've done, both the How To Tuesdays, the full links, and the Physical Fridays. They all live on tomrolandpodcast.com. And the social media is Tom_Roland, ROWLAND, on Instagram, or you can go to our big account, Saltwater_Experience. I hope to hear from you soon. So now, let's get on to today's show.
How's it going? This is Calder Allen, and you're watching the Tom Roland Podcast.
Calder, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm so excited that we made contact and I got you on here. You were the first person that I saw at Bonnaroo, and the first show this year. So congratulations on getting that gig. That was pretty cool. Did you like Bonnaroo?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was my first time playing out of Texas, because I'm originally from Austin, and it was my first show ever out of the state, and it was cool to see, all the campgrounds and stuff and kind of that whole scene.
That's a pretty big one. That's a pretty big festival to play. And you're 19 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And your sound, man, is awesome. I mean, I really, really, really like it. We listened to it this morning while we were working out. I put it on as the warm-up music. We listened to the whole album, and all the guys like it, man. It's great. You just got this great sound.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So what's when I looked at your album cover, I see that there's fly tying bobbin, there are flies, there's a fly reel, there's a knife. I think there was a pencil sharpener. What's the significance of your album cover? Why did you select all of those things to be on top of your cowboy hat?
Well, the idea behind it was, the bird's eye view of the brim was kind of like, just a collage of all my experiences, throughout the past 4 years. And because I started writing songs during COVID, that's kind of what I put my time into. And I knew how to play the guitar for a little bit, but never really wrote to the chords that I knew or anything. It was always really just campfires and stuff like that. But yeah, over COVID, I started writing a bunch of songs and realized that they all were connected with what I had experienced in the past 4 years. And that was kind of the inspiration behind the cover.
And so tell me how fishing has been so influential in your life.
Well, I think fishing was the first thing for me that I realized I could really express myself freely. It was kind of a safe place. It was because I was never the best student, but I always knew that I had the capability to focus and stuff because I'd always be able to fish for 8 hours by myself. And so, my teachers were like, you need to, be on track and do all this stuff, and you have learning disabilities. And I was like, well, I don't think so. I just think it's more focused on nature and, connecting that way with the world and stuff. So that was kind of my outlook on it.
Well, I think we came from the same place, because I would have been diagnosed with every learning disability, but it wasn't really a learning disability. It was more of an interest level. Like, I just wasn't interested in what was going on at school. And then
Exactly.
you would get, like, I was a wrestler and I was interested in that, and I was interested in fishing, and I was interested in hunting. And just like you, like, there's no problem concentrating on the things that I liked. It was just that nobody was talking about the things that I liked in school.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was kind of your experience too?
Exact experience, yeah.
So this seems extremely accelerated, that you just start writing songs in COVID, and which really wasn't very long ago by my standards. Really, as you get a little bit older, the years go by a little faster, I think, but it wasn't very long ago. And so you write these songs, and now you've released your first album, which is fantastic, and so much is happening for you right now. Does that seem accelerated to you, or was it like a natural process that it just started flowing, or what was that like?
It's definitely something I'm getting used to, in the sense of just kind of getting used to performing in front of people, because I've never really done that before, and singing songs that are, meaningful to my life and me and my family and kind of my experiences, it's weird showing that to other people in an honest way, but I'm getting used to it, and it's super fun. And the way I look at it now is, my band members and I are really close, and I just feel comfortable with them, and I don't really worry about what's going on off the stage. And it's gotten to a place where I'm pretty comfortable now, but I am getting used to it, because it is very new, especially too because of COVID, because you have this 2-year gap of just not really seeing anyone like that. It was just, it's interesting to go from that to that.
Well, it's also interesting from the spectator or the fan perspective, because it was also missing for us. Like, Bonnaroo didn't happen for 2 years. One was because of COVID, and then the year before that, it was it kind of got rained out and flooded. So all the people that were at Bonnaroo, they haven't been to that festival in 2 years, and it felt new. Like, everything felt kind of new and kind of different. I mean, kind of like you're getting used to it again. You're getting used to being around all these people. You're getting used to doing that, and we're watching you getting used to being on the stage, which was pretty cool. How did you hook up with your band?
So I grew up in Austin. I'm a 6th generation Austinite, and I just met them through my grandfather, my uncle, my dad. My whole dad's side of the family is really into the arts, and if they're not doing playwrights, they're writing songs. And my uncle's a keyboard player, and really through him and through the producer that helped me with the record, by the name of his name's Charlie Sexton, and he helped me get the whole band together and piece it one by one and kind of slowly, but it came together over the past year, pretty slowly, but together. It was good.
And what's that process like? Like, you write a few songs in COVID, and then are you kind of playing with people that and somebody hears this and goes, man, that is really good. Like, this kid has some talent. Let's put a band around him, or like, how does it? What does that do? What is that like?
Well, it's different for everyone that I've met, but for me, what happened was I wrote these songs, and my brother has a record out too that he did in high school and that he was happy with. And I figured, especially with my family being as in the music world as they are, I would do something in it, in the sense of have a record out. But I never would I never thought in the world that I would pursue it full time. And then COVID hit, wrote all these songs, kind of fast tracked this whole process in my mind of like what's important to me and like what I want to do and how I want to look at things. And the whole recording process of recording the songs with Charlie and Jacob Skiba and everyone over at Arlen Studios kind of made me realize that I wanted to pursue it full time, because it was just a really welcoming experience.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's awesome.
So, but to answer your question, what happened for me was after the recording process, I realized that I wanted to play live and do all these shows and stuff. But I still had to go up to the University of Montana for about 3 months, because that's really when I realized I wasn't a college kid, is when I was up there, because I was fishing too much.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
Really.
Like that was the plan before, as you were going to go to Missoula, University of Montana, and what were you planning on studying there?
I was going to major in outdoor recreation through their PTRM program and minor in music. And then I realized like pretty shortly when I was up there that I was pretty distracted with all the rivers and fishing opportunities.
What rivers were you fishing mostly?
Mostly the Bitterroot is what I spent most of my time on, but the Clark Fork was always easy because it ran, right in town, and the Blackfoot was right there too. And there's a bunch of little, spill offs of these rivers that are amazing fishing too. So kind of all these little, but mainly the Bitterroot.
What was your trout fishing experience like before you went to Missoula?
Well, my brother went to college at Boulder.
Okay.
And he was going to play basketball there, but got injured and ended up rooming with another, fly fisherman from Austin, Texas, by the name of Noah Thompson. And my brother's sled got into it there. And so when we would go visit him when he was in school, I would trout fish with him.
Nice.
But besides that, it's pretty much all bass fishing in Austin and stuff, which is great because bass fishing in Austin and really Texas in general, it teaches you how to double haul and strip and move a fly and do all the stuff that you need to do for saltwater. So, and I love saltwater, so it preps you really well.
Well, the funny thing is I checked in with some of my friends around your area, and I got something from a mutual friend of ours, Yako Lucas, and let's see if I can figure out how to do this. I don't know if I can. He sent me some pictures of you fishing with him. So are you seeing that or not? No?
I can't see it.
Okay.
But I'm assuming you're going to pull up a black drum photo.
Yeah, that's it. What about now? Can you see that?
Yeah, that's great.
So that, and then there were some videos too. I'm just butchering this screen share. I was going to try to get it going, but there you caught some really good black drum with Yako, and he's a cool dude, isn't he?
Yeah, he's awesome.
How many times have you fished with him? Here's a video.
I've just fished with him that one time, and we've hung out a few times before that, just at the film festivals in Austin and stuff. But that was the only time I fished with him. But we still text all the time. I'm trying to figure out another date to go out.
Yeah,
but,
you definitely should.
That was a fun day.
So were you fishing with him? Were you catching those fish right in that Spartina grass behind you, or? Yeah,
it was pretty insane because it was 20-mile-an-hour winds, but these fish were tailing, and it was really cool to see because the flat wasn't really wind protected, so it was still rippling in there and stuff, but to see them comfortable in that type of water was pretty nuts.
Yeah, that is. They do that also in South Carolina. There's like the Spartina grass, and they get way up in there, and it'll be dry most of the time, right? And then you find these big tides, and then the fish know about those big tides too, and everybody goes up in there, and they're eating all the snails and everything that's on the grass, and everything, crabs and everything else that's generally most of the time not available to them. It's pretty special. It can only last, sometimes it'll be like 15 to 30 minute window where you can get up in there and they'll really be tailing nicely. But that is one of the coolest fishing situations ever, when those fish get way up in that grass. That's awesome.
I was looking at social media videos of that yesterday, and I was thinking about how cool that would be to see that. the
Yeah.
flood tides and stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you go, you definitely want to go with somebody that really knows, because if you try to figure it out yourself, I mean, it's such a tight window that you can miss it very, very easily. So if you only have like 1 or 2 days, make sure that you're hitting it with somebody that knows those tides in the different areas, because like this flat over here could be 3 inches deeper than this one on this side of the channel. And so you can go and hit one first, and then you can go hit the other one after, and extend that window out just a little bit longer. But I have a couple of friends in South Carolina that are taking me to do it. Really fun. Really like it. That's
awesome.
super cool. So I'm interested in when did you produce this album and put it out there? It just recently came out, right before Bonnaroo, right?
Yeah, so it came out before Bonnaroo, but the whole thing was recorded about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
In Austin. And the reason why we just held it is, we wanted to kind of release it at an appropriate time where I was playing a lot of shows and kind of to work the record, because I'm not really officially doing a tour right now. It's a lot of independent dates with, opening up for different people or doing some festival stuff, but it's not like back to back, like, different town every night tour. So it's real spaced out. So we kind of just released it before everything kind of happened this summer.
And
so there's more.
So right out of high school, you decide you're going to go to Missoula, and you actually do go. And where in that process had you already recorded this album, or where? Okay, so you recorded it the summer before you went to college.
Yeah, and first week of school, I got the master's back, and that's when it was all finished.
Wow. And so what's your thought process like you say you're distracted by the fishing, but you're also distracted by you're getting the masters back. You're listening to this. I'm assuming that it sounded really good. So what's the thought process when you're kind of a freshman in college, you're in Montana, you're fishing all the time, and you get this album back? Like what are you thinking?
It's a distracting mindset, an unfocused mindset. No, but it's funny because as much as I say I was unfocused in one way of my life, I kind of like you said, it was not interested in this section, but diving single thing possible into this section. And what I really wanted to do, and why I was so happy that you reached out, was figure out a way to tie in fly fishing with my music, and try and figure out a way to make it not just about the songs, or make it just about the music, more about kind of my outlook on how I want to pursue life and want to, be into conservation and work with a bunch of amazing people in the outdoor industry, and also write songs about it.
Right.
Promote that kind of realm, but which is, more towards, I have plenty of more songs that are going to get recorded, and they're all more geared towards that perception of what I think, and kind of my direct outdoor correlation with the writing stuff. And so the first record was more like just songs that I just started writing, and they ended up being a storyline of my high school experience. But second record that will come out, and hopefully shortly, but it needs to get recorded first, of course, will be more about the fishing and the outdoor perception and all that stuff.
That's cool. Well, on your website, you've got right away, you've got like you got a tab right at the beginning of conservation and all the different groups that you support, which is really cool. It's really cool because, in country music, we've had a lot of, or not a lot of, but a fair number of people that were legit rodeo cowboys, right? Like Chris Ledoux and even Robert Earl Keen out of Austin itself. He says he has an 8-second rodeo career, which was 8 bulls that all lasted 1 second each. but so very different, varying degrees of a rodeo career from somebody like Chris Ledoux that was super legit. But I don't know that anybody's done that with fishing. Like you hear just the cliche fishing stuff in country songs, but not like you're doing it with your heart, or I don't know of any. You know what I'm saying? Like it could be a really cool angle. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's for me kind of going back to what I was thinking about the first week of college and stuff, and how I was processing everything is just trying to figure out a way to, I was thinking, I was like, well, how does this stuff work and what do I do? And the only thing I kind of come up with is just be honest about how I view things, and everything should work out, hopefully. Find out.
Yeah. What about what are your parents thinking at this stage? Like you go to college and you're in there for a couple months, it sounds like. And is there a phone call home that you just kind of talk to them, or what happens here?
There's a series of conversations that are, I'm really fortunate in the fact that my parents have kind of understand the whole pursuing a passion and pursuing, what you're most invested in, and kind of doing it that way. My mom has a study abroad program that she just retired from, but her passion was, traveling and cultures, and that's what she did. And my dad's a visual artist who, has an art gallery in Fort Worth and does all of that. So, and my dad's whole side of the family too is all, musicians and playwrights and artists and sculptors. So it's all, I was in a really good place with my family to be able to say, like, I want to pursue music and I want to kind of see where this takes me and stuff. And they've always been supportive through like supporting, me and my brother through what we're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. And
so it wasn't hard conversations, but it was definitely, it was also a little bit scary and nerve-wracking for me because, you realize right when you're out of school that you have, schedules, and you have to make your own schedule, and you don't have one for you, and you have to, figure it out. And there was a lot of free time the first month of dropping out where I was trying to figure out how to get organized and, stay on track.
And what does that look like when you're trying to get organized? You're trying to write more, you're trying to practice, what are you doing?
Well, writing for me is not, it's not really a consistent thing because it's so weird how I draw inspiration. It could be a weird moment where I'm just like, with my friends, and I'm like, okay, I have to like write this down. And then like, if I get in, that headspace, it's game over. I have to go home and finish it. Like I have to focus on it. But it's really consuming is what I'm trying to say when I get the inspiration to write a song. And but it's different for everything. I mean, how I get organized typically is when I have writer's block and stuff is through fishing. I just, focus on that and kind of distance myself from writing. And I don't have an exact science to anything yet, but I just kind of try and do, there's a story that there's this musician named Guy Clark, and he was woodworker, among many other things. But when he would write songs and get stuck, he would have his whole workshop behind him, and he'd have a swivel chair. So whenever he'd get stuck, he would just turn around and start, working with his hands on, different projects and stuff. And I kind of do the same thing inspired by that with fly tying. So I'll have my vise and all that stuff there, and then I'll, write in the same station. So if I get stuck, I can just kind of, tie flies and focus on that.
That's awesome. What kind of flies do you like to tie? You tie bass bugs, or you tie trout flies, or what?
All sorts of stuff. I haven't tied many trout flies since I've been back in Austin, mostly all saltwater, redfish and stuff like that. And, I like to tie, even though I don't, fish for them a lot, but a lot of like the Grand Slam species flies. I just like the way they look.
You tied the crabs?
Yeah.
Like Merkins, or what do you tie?
Well, this is like, some EP stuff. This is one that's like for redfish. And
oh yeah. Yeah.
Start getting into
it's like a Chinese finger trick, you like push it together,
and
it does, it kind of flares out, and then you tie it. Like a lot of the, that fly is really popular in Cuba for permit. It's not as popular in the Keys for permit for some reason. I don't know. We use a lot of that rug yarn, like you're talking about, and then the strong arm fly that it's got like a realistic crab claw coming off the back of it. That's really popular right now for the permit. And then the redfish flies are kind of fun to tie because they'll eat anything. So
yeah, you can get experimental and feel good about yourself.
It's like when I went to Christmas Island, I had been there once before, and I was like, man, these fish, they just like anything that's kind of flashy and small, and I just started whipping up the craziest stuff ever. And then when I got there, I was like, man, let's see if they'll eat this. And it was almost as much fun to kind of see if they would eat something, or if you could get a negative reaction from them. I mean, it had to all be done right. But if the fly looked, if it's kind of a variation on something else that works, it's got rubber legs on it, or it's got a little more flash, or it's got a different wing or something like that, then, they liked it a lot. But I like tying the redfish flies and the bonefish flies also. There's some crazy fly tires that are so good at the crabs right now. They're so incredibly realistic. But I love tying those type of flies as well. So I'm interested in the inspiration that you get from fishing. Like when you got writer's block and you need to go fishing, do you just like try to not think at all about what it is, and then you kind of get like this all of a sudden it comes clear and you go back to writing? Or how does it work for you? Is it a gradual process, or like lightning strikes?
It's really inconsistent, and I don't think it'll ever really be consistent, but I'd try my best. But it's when I fish, I don't think about, sometimes when I'm fishing, I think about a lot of things that aren't related to music, just like in general, just like my mind kind of roaming. But, other times I'm really just dialed in on the fishing. So it's really, if I'm going out on flats, like on the Texas coast, and I'm typically more locked in than, if I'm like wading a creek for bass.
Yeah.
And I love that, but it's just two different mindsets. Kind of like the whole mindset too with freshwater and saltwater, in my opinion. That's changed for me because I've gotten more comfortable double hauling and can be more relaxed on the bow of a boat and pulling a boat and stuff like that. But at first the transition was more, all right, saltwater is more intense and freshwater is not, but they're the same thing in their own right, and it's just different. But I've gotten more comfortable with both.
What's on your bucket list of things that you would like to do in fishing?
So many things. So many things. I'm trying to think. I've been looking a lot at, for freshwater stuff, like jungle species just seem really cool. And I've had some of my buddies go down into the Amazon and stuff and fish for peacock bass and arapaima and all that stuff, and it just looks insane. But I'm trying to think. It's really weird because I used to always want to just be like, all right, I want to travel and go different places. But I'm really close with a guide down in the Texas coast by the name of JT Van Zant. Sure. And we've just been longtime family friends, and he's kind of mentored me into now what's getting into my musical outlook too, but also just fishing in general and what it means to respect nature and stuff. And I really do believe in his process behind knowing a place intimately, and that's kind of the greatest achievement that you can have as a fisherman is knowing your fishery the best that you can, and you could possibly know it. So that's kind of my outlook now, and I'm just trying to figure out what that fishery is, if it's in Texas or if it's somewhere else. But that's kind of my outlook on that right now with fly fishing and my goals with that.
Yeah.
I would love to run, I would love to work at lodges or guide at some point and figure out, like I told you the other day on the phone, my dream would be, 5 months on tour and then 5 months really working on a boat and guiding and working with people, and then the next 2 months kind of doing the recording process again and then cycling that through.
Did you ever hear the story of David Lee Roth deciding that he wanted to be a paramedic?
No.
And he actually was a paramedic, I think in New York. And he told this story on the Joe Rogan podcast. It's fascinating because he was one of the biggest rock stars in the world. and he decided, kind of like what you're talking about, like he needed something to take his mind off of all of this other stuff, and he tends to, well, at least the impression I get is that he tends to not want to let all that stuff get to his head, so he wants to do things that like regular people do, and he wanted to be a paramedic, and he was like, so I went to school, I learned how to do it, I passed the test, I got in there, I was the first one in the truck, I was the last one to leave, I was cleaning up the truck and everything, and I mean, imagine that you're like in trouble and David Lee Roth is your paramedic. Like, you'd be like, oh my God, what is going on here? But when you're saying this, like you're wanting to guide, dude, I can see it in your future. Like if you put out another album like you are right now, that's what it's going to be like. They're going to be like, this is your guide, Calder Allen, that people are going to be starstruck, because the music that you're putting out right now is really good. Really good.
Thank you.
I hope that you're super proud of it. I mean, maybe I don't know. Sometimes when you're doing something, you don't realize how good people think it is. I don't know. Where are you with that? I mean, I know you're getting positive feedback on the album, but do you?
My whole outlook on that is, I can only be honest to what I can be honest about. I've as long as I'm writing songs that fulfill me and or being honest to what I think, then I'm kind of doing my job. As long, when I start straying away from that and thinking, things that aren't really related to, being actually expressive, is when you kind of get in a weird zone, in my opinion, because, that's what exactly kind of what I'm talking about with the guiding stuff and fishing is, I don't want to get to a point where I'm, I want to have the balance of, it's not, just to make sure that I maintain a base on like why I do music and why I write songs and stuff like that. And I'm really fortunate with the band members that I play with and my, surrounding inner circles in Austin with music to be comfortable being myself freely and not feeling pressured to like, all right, I'm going to wear this stuff on stage because that's what people want me to wear. It's more, all expressive to what I want to do.
That's super cool. That's one of the things that I like the most about what I'm hearing is like, it's truly original. Like it doesn't have like the Nashville flair. It's really original. I like it. I mean, I love, I just really like it from the first, and it's funny because it was the first show that we saw at Bonnaroo, and then even a couple of days in, we're like, man, people are like, what's your favorite show so far? Like, kind of the first one, like really kind of the first one I saw, because I always like Bonnaroo to find new music and to find, things that I've never been exposed to, and you can hear some stuff that you really like, and then you can hear some stuff that other people are obviously really into it, but it's just not your scene, and you just get this wide variety of music. I go to Bonnaroo because my daughter likes it, and we've been going now. That's our third time. It would be our fifth time if it hadn't been canceled, but we go. Yeah. We've been 3 times, and when we have this friend that goes with us, and he takes his daughter because our daughters were best friends when they were growing up, and then they moved away. And so this is our reunion, and it's just kind of a really special time. And the girls love it, and it's just a cool time to find new music and find new things. But this year, I mean, I'm not kidding. I think that you were probably one of my favorite shows, and it was interesting because we got to see you twice, and you were playing like really. I said 100 yards the other day. I bet it was about 400 yards. But this year they put stages. They haven't been doing that where they have the stages in the campgrounds like that. Right. And they try different things every now and then, but that was a really cool thing. And the night before you were there, the Turnpike Troubadours were on that little stage, and they rocked it right there at 400 yards from our RV. And it was really cool, but that's a great experience.
I have to ask you, because I I didn't camp at the festival.
Yeah,
My
good.
drummer, of course, camped. But
Yeah.
I was wondering what that whole experience was like, because I was, me and all my band members were laughing when we pulled up to that show, because we were like, oh God, like this doesn't look comfortable at all. Like,
No, it doesn't. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to do it, right? And
yeah,
what you were looking at are people like your age camping in the no power, no water, dry camp spots, right? Like
yeah,
there's that whole scene going on.
yeah,
And man, it's hot. It's in Manchester, Tennessee in June, and it can be extremely hot. I don't really have a
yeah.
lot of interest in that. Okay. then there's these other campsites that you pull an RV into. They have power but no water. That's
Yeah.
where we were. Now where we're going next year is to the VIP section, finally, because the VIP section actually doesn't. I like Bonnaroo for a number of reasons. One is that just the general admission ticket will allow you to stand in line for the pit, and even on the biggest stage there, well, on the two biggest stage, there's a pit in front of it. They only let about 250 people in there. It could hold 1,000 people. So they only let 250 people in there, and if you're willing to wait in that line, you can stand. I mean, we were front row for Post Malone. I was front row for Sturgill Simpson. I've been front row for all of these bands my daughter wants to see, and you just wait in line, and then you're right there, and it's not super crowded. And then the VIP's behind you, and then behind that is the massive crowd. And
Yeah.
you just have plenty of room. It's actually one of the most comfortable places to watch a show. And so that's just with the general admission. And then the VIP is behind or backstage, which I don't really think is a better experience to watch the music.
Yeah, backstage show watching is pretty difficult to get a good mix of with the sound that they're doing.
Right.
Because
Now,
also, some bands don't even have monitors backstage.
Yeah.
It's all in their headphones.
Right, and you
So
can barely hear
can't
it.
even
Everything's
hear it.
projecting outwards, right? And you can
Yeah.
hear it hundreds of yards out there, like you're standing right next to it. But backstage, it's not as good. So we're really not into that. So we've been doing just the general admission thing and doing the RV camping. Now the RV camping that's a lot more our style, because there's a shower, there's air conditioning, there's food.
You're safe from the terror.
Yeah, we spend a good amount of time there. Like we pick the shows that we want to go to, and we go over into the main deal, and do that whole thing until. But then at any time we could say, well, there's nothing we really want to see for a couple hours. Let's go back. We'll eat lunch or eat an early dinner, and kind of hang out a little bit, and then we'll come back for these other shows that we want to see. That's a lot better. But then what we noticed this year is that the VIP section is actually inside the gate. So now you don't have to wait in line at all to get back into where all the concerts are. So they have a whole VIP camping area that has its own showers and its own bathrooms and everything like that. It's a little bit more expensive, but at this stage of my life, it's worth it. Definitely worth it. But the camping, I'm surprised more people don't get in serious trouble with dehydration and heat stroke.
That's what I was thinking, because I was, even that first show, the first one that y'all saw, I was in jeans and long sleeves and kind of covered up, because I refused to wear shorts on stage. My uncle, the first thing he told me when I started playing, he was like, well, I'll tell you the only rules that you should probably follow. And I was like, what? And he's like, don't wear a tank top and don't wear shorts on stage. Nice. And I was like, okay, I'll honor that. But it was hot. And I was like, I can't imagine, not being able to go back to AC or having to walk the whole fest to find water or like get, I was like, there's no way that this isn't like a health scare.
It could be. And people are camping and sleeping in those tents, and they stay up at an EDM show until 4:00 in the morning, and then they go to sleep in a tent and wake up and the sun is blaring down at 10:00 in the morning. I'm really surprised that more people don't get in trouble, but they don't seem to. They really don't. Or people are sleeping in cars, and you know how hot a car can get. I mean, my gosh. But no, we don't have anything to do with that. Nothing at all.
I heard this one story of a photographer that was shooting Bonnaroo a couple years back, and he cut his toe and then was walking around in the campsites and got a staph infection from all, just the bacteria that was on the sites, and had to get his toe amputated.
Oh, that's
Yeah. I was
that's,
like, I don't know.
that's the worst
I
thing
don't
ever.
know
Now you're
what
definitely
you're
going to wear boots and pants.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
So what do they do with the artists? Like when you play, how do they get you there, and then where do you go afterwards?
Well, we stayed at the Holiday Inn right outside of the fest,
Okay.
and they would just shuttle in. They had a bus that you would just walk up to, and it would bring you to. It's called Artist Transportation, but it's like just this dirt lot like right behind the main stage, and then you're at the fest, and then it's all kind of, you got to be at the right place at the right time then for your shows and stuff. But if you, gear wise, like the day of your show, they'll have people move your gear, and it's pretty easy.
So you bring everything. Like I watch, in the transition of those shows, and they'll be setting up the next drum set, off to the side a little bit, and then they're going to move that in there. And some people bring their own amps, and some people bring, how does that work with like what the sound equipment? Do you just kind of,
Yeah.
because some people come in and they've got their own light show and everything, and it's like, man, how did they do all that? Like it's so fast because
really
it's only like 20 minutes.
It's really stressful because, especially trying to figure out, we drove up to Nashville, or Manchester really, but to Tennessee to have all that stuff, because it's scary flying with, your guitars and amps and stuff. And it's just an uneasy feeling. And I feel way better having it in like the bed of a truck, like while I'm driving it, than, in an airplane cargo plot. But it is stressful, and that's really the biggest stress of the show is all the loading up the gear and making sure that it doesn't get ruined while you're there, and making sure that's protected. But what it looks like is you'll bring your gear, and you have people on the stage helping you set it up, and you do a sound check, and after your set it just gets stripped down, and then you get, if you ask people for help, they'll help you, but it's kind of on you to get everything organized, and you bring it back to where it won't get ruined and stuff. But that's definitely the biggest stress of the show.
Wow. Yeah. And so your experience with that, you're playing in Texas, and I guess you played Austin City Limits, and you played lots of bars and all kinds of places probably in and around Texas. You're moving all your own equipment. You're doing some of that. And is this just on a larger scale? Like you're just having to move it further, and there's more people around, and is it just a bigger scale, or was there other differences?
It's harder to move gear in the small nightclubs because everyone's crowding you.
Yeah.
And then and then they realize that everyone talks to the band members right before the show. They realize that you're playing, and then they start asking all these questions. They're like, oh, what's this, and how's that, and oh, that's cool. And it's like, it's really stressful because you're trying to set up.
Yeah, you're trying to set up and get your thoughts together and remember the set list and the whole. There's probably a lot of things you're trying to do. Yeah,
it's all. I love those shows. I mostly play at the Continental Club in Austin, and been really fortunate to have been playing the Continental Club. But I love that venue, but it is you get a lot of questions about your gear and stuff, and talking while you're trying to set up and stuff. It's fun.
Well, it's
all fun. It's cool. Like I like that. It's I like
it'll make you an expert at doing that, because like at one point,
make you an expert at what you own, because they'll be like, a lot of people in Austin really know their stuff about music, so they'll ask you about your gear, and I'm like, well, it's all new to me, so I'm like, I don't know. And then I have to learn, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll figure that out.
Yeah, but it'll also make you an expert, because at one point it took all your concentration to do that, to put all that stuff together and make sure that you're doing it right, and then soon you're doing it while people are talking to you, you're carrying on a conversation, you're doing this. It's not unlike being a fishing guide where you pull up to the ramp, your people are already there, you're there 30 minutes early, and they're already there. And you're like, oh man, I thought I was going to be early. And so now you got to go through the whole, take the boat off the trailer, put it up to the dock, park the truck and they're talking to you, trying to help you. And at one point, that was really super stressful just to be able to do that at all. And now you can do it with two people like basically hanging on your shoulder. Like, what are we going to fish for today? What's the weather like? How the fish biting? You know, it's like, okay, cool. And it just becomes second nature. You just get it all done.
Yeah. For sure. That's kind of what it's like now, which is a good feeling, but it's all fun.
Yeah.
I've grown to love, the whole live shows and stuff like that. It used to be really stressful, but now it's pretty comfortable.
Yeah. Well, between now and October, I've got your list in my hand. July 15th, you got the Avett Brothers and you.
Yes, and that's one that the travel is going to be stressful because we're going to fly up there, and that's like, with gear, it's going to be a little stressful. I have to figure that out today because we're going to fly out tomorrow, but it's gotta make sure everything's locked and hardened.
And so that's commercial flight?
Yeah.
Wow. And what do you do for baggage? Like, I mean, most people are getting hit with a 50 pound baggage overage.
Yeah.
And you're carrying all this stuff.
What I'm trying to figure out is, and I was looking at it this morning, and I think what I'm going to have to do is just request that I can carry on a guitar and have my brother carry on my second guitar. And that's how we'll do it. And I guess I won't bring an amp and hope that there's a backline one that I can use there. Because if there's not, I could just plug in with my acoustic and play the whole set. I don't need to play an electric, but it's all really stressful because, I just don't want anything to break. And then,
Seems like you could go with like the stuff we use for our cameras and stuff like the Pelican cases and those
exactly.
kind of deals.
And
it seems like I've never seen that, but they have gun cases. It seems like you'd be able to fit a guitar in a gun case, maybe.
Well, I do have hard cases for guitars that I'm going to use, but the problem is I need to get a lock on them because I don't like, I don't want,
Yeah, then TSA is going to be thinking it's a gun, and they're going to want to open it. Yeah, and so that's a tricky one. So then you've got the Wood Brothers. Just shortly after that, 3 days later, two big names, one in Boulder, one in Washington, and then
both
Lollapalooza. Yeah, how are you gonna do what Adrian Smith did on my podcast? He was talking about how he was the guitarist for Iron Maiden. If you haven't heard that podcast, you should definitely go back and listen to it. But he's a very passionate fisherman, and he spent his whole career just like he would say, oh, this next one's in Boulder. What's the nearest river to Boulder? Where do people fish there? And then he would plan like an extra couple of days to kind of hang around and fish the frying pan.
What we're doing.
Or the Aspen. You should fish the frying pan there. That river's fantastic. It's closer to Aspen, really.
Yeah, that's closer. It's a little bit ways off. I'm probably gonna end up fishing, probably just Boulder Creek right in town, like just like.
Oh, well, your brother knows it, right?
Yeah, my brother knows it, and I could go to the South Platte and do Deckers and stuff, but or the Blue, but I'm probably just gonna do Boulder Creek with like a 3-weight. That sounds super fun.
Nice. So then that's the one other thing that you're going to have to take with you. Now you're going to have to get a case that can have a guitar and a fly rod in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna start making cases that are the market size is 2 people.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe Yeti will do it for you or something like that. And then Lollapalooza. That's a big one. That's like really big. What do you know about that one?
I've never been. My brother had a band growing up and he played it and he said it was nuts, but it's I've never been. The only festival I had been to before Bonnaroo was ACL, and then I went to Bonnaroo and realized that ACL was very low maintenance compared to Bonnaroo because Bonnaroo was kind of on a whole different game of a music festival, its own beast.
Man, there is quite a lineup at Lollapalooza.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited.
Really
it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun.
Really, really good. Yeah, that'll be great. And then you've got a few more festivals, and then the Turnpike Troubadours on October 22nd in Texas. How far is that from you? New
45
Braunfels.
minutes. It's right on there's this fishing hole in the Guadalupe River called Whitewater. It's because it's right by Whitewater Amphitheater.
Oh, nice.
And so it's like right where me and my buddies used to fish in high school.
And do you float that river?
I have. I usually just wade it.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of it's weird for me fishing for, like, trout just shouldn't be in that river. And it's real like like not natural for my brain to be, you see it's a little brutal in my perspective. I like fishing for wild fish and stuff like that. And
No, don't they have a Guadalupe bass there that is native to that area?
Yeah. Guadalupe bass is Texas's state fish, and those fish are awesome. They fight a little bit harder than a largemouth, pound for pound. And I mainly fish for them on the lower Colorado River outside of Austin, kind of like east.
And so, are they a little bit more of a river stream fish than a lake fish, or like a largemouth?
They do both. I will say in the still water stuff, if you have like a rock outlying and there's this little bit of a lull in the current, they'll be behind there. But it's they do like current.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
have you fished for smallmouth much?
Mm-hmm. I've actually caught a smallmouth on the Guadalupe River.
Oh, really? I didn't know they were there.
Which is super rare. And then the Devil's River is where I really want to go and fish for smallmouth.
And I think, isn't that where Alvin guides?
Yeah, that was that Yeti film.
Yeah, he did that Yeti film with one of our hosts, Miles Berghoff was in that also. He said that river was really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And is there a motor allowance on that, or is it total float?
I don't know. I think it's total float.
Yeah.
I would assume it'd probably be pretty hard to run because there's a lot of shallow spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. We lost you one more time.
Yeah.
So as far as the conservation and your music go, what kind of a tie do you see, at this stage? Obviously, lots of things can change, and nobody knows the future. But what kind of a tie do you see between yourself and your message and your music and conservation? On your website, you've got Texas Park and Wildlife Foundation, Coastal Conservation, CCA, Bonefish Tarpon Trust, and Project Healing Waters, which is a super cool organization. We've done a couple of TV shows with them. What kind of a tie do you see with that?
Just how I feel connected with those.
Yeah, and how you would like to see yourself work with those organizations or other organizations, and kind of what's your mission as far as conservation goes.
Really the whole point behind having the conservation thing on the website too is the only one I've worked directly with is the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, and I've done some stuff for Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, but nothing really extensive compared to what the people that actually work for them do. And it's for me, it's more just I want to have those out. Like I don't need to have any affiliation with them at all. I of course, if something happened where they were like, we want to do this event or like something like that, I would love to work with them and do all that stuff for and help them. But that's not the whole point. Is just like getting more people to look at stuff like that and think like that. With I don't have any expectation behind anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know if you were already working with them or not. Love to get you hooked in with Captains for Clean Water too. They do some incredible things in the state of Florida.
Yeah, for sure. And Texas needs a chapter of that as of right now.
For sure. What kind of water issues are you facing there?
A lot of oyster harvesting, and it's no bueno. But it's a lot of just misinformation and people not understanding what is actually happening on the Texas coast. So they think everything's fine, and it's not.
Yeah.
But
well, education in my experience with Captains for Clean Water is that education is the first and most effective and efficient step in just really letting people know what is happening in a way that they can understand it and not feel like an idiot for not knowing it, and like in having like a real warm, inviting kind of deal, as opposed to this super outrage, going on. And I think that Captains for Clean Water has been very, very effective with explaining the water issues to fishermen and non-fishermen, and to kind of to really gain a lot of following from people that may be associated with real estate, or maybe associated with the restaurants or whatever, that tourism that is associated with water. And Texas is much the same. You have this beautiful coast, and if the water is not good, then people aren't going to want to go there, eventually.
Exactly.
Whether they're fishermen or bird watchers, or just people that like the coast. Educating them in a way that it's like inviting, I think, is a real
Well, the real problem now that social media has created, and kind of my generation, with attention span and stuff like that, is it's so hard to push a narrative, good or bad. It's easier to push a bad one, but it's so hard to push any narrative of any sort or any agenda, because it's, say I was to post something saying, all right, here's this oyster, over harvesting oysters in Texas coast, boom, boom, boom. Then you have, 20 other ones saying that that's not what's going on. And then you got, the algorithm of social media going to the 20 other ones, because everyone's reading that, like all the negative stuff, because that's just usually how it works. And it's a whole mess of misinformation, and trying to, it's hard to rally people together up. Like, I don't know if it was like that all the time. I can't speak for, growing up without social media, but it seems harder now to get people on the same page about really being determined for more than a week on an issue.
Yeah, because the attention span for everyone has shrunk, and it's not like things were different or radically different, but they were much slower, right? When there were only 3 channels on TV, and you had 3 different news channels, well, one might be pushing one might be pushing another, but the news cycle was much, much slower, and you were getting your news from television and the newspaper. And so the newspaper is going to be published once a day. So you're not going to get another, opinion until tomorrow morning, where now it's, you get an opinion every millisecond. There's somebody else. And
then you end up not reading all the opinions, and then you can't make your own. And it's just weird.
It is. It's a weird time. And, I don't know if we're capable of that much information being available to us 24/7 all the time. I just really don't know. And I think that's one of the reasons why the attention span is shrinking, because you're not capable of ingesting that much information. So you just scroll through, just keep moving until you see something that's outrageous or something, and then you stop on that for a little bit. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah. So we'd love to get you down to the Keys. Come down there and fish sometime. I did pass your name over to the general manager at Hawks Cay about the Keys to Country. That's a great thing that they have going on there. And I know they've had some really, Lee Bryce has been down there, and a couple other people that I know and like. You'd be perfect for that. If we can get you hooked up with that, I'll come down there.
I love that.
Take you fishing myself, and we'll make that happen. But your new album is called The Game. And where do people get it? I listen to it on Spotify, but I don't know where everybody gets it.
Yeah,
what you do with
it? It's on all streaming platforms, and it's. I'm trying to figure out how to do a vinyl right now, so hopefully that will be in the works, because I think that'd be really cool. But it's as of right now, it's on any streaming platform that's available.
One more question: who did you listen to? What kind of music did you listen to? Like when you're 12 to 17. That kind of time frame in your life?
Well, fishing films actually got me into listening to more, actually what I call is actual music. It's actually, okay, this is kind of hard to explain, but watching Cosmo and all these insane fishing hype films, I loved that. And then I got into that type of music because I was I would imagine in the bass drop, you're And then like me and my friends in the car would always do like the fake hook sets and like on bass drops and stuff, and it's hilarious. But then I started watching other films where it was more acoustic stuff, and I was like, well, that's cool. And it was real easy for my brain to be like, that's awesome, because it's like I'm looking at Fish films while like there's like some cool acoustic thing going on. So I started listening to a band called Camp, and Ryan Bingham and a few others. That the Camp was the biggest inspiration for me to start writing songs directly, that I kind of noticed, because I didn't take vocal lessons or anything. So I kind of would listen to their records and start singing. But there's a plenty of other inspirations and stuff and bands and such. But that was the one that I really remember being like, wow, kind of,
my daughter loves that band. She loves Camp.
They're really good, I think.
Yeah, no, they are. They're really good. And so that inspiration, when you're writing a song, do you hear melody in your head, or do you put it around around the words later?
Well, when I started doing it, it kind of had to be guitar dependent on what I could do, because I wasn't good enough at guitar to think of, and I'm really not now. I kind of fake it, but to think of a melody in my head and make that was really hard. So I would have to make the melody on the guitar and then kind of sing to that, which is, ended up being really great for writing, honestly, because you're kind of writing to what that melody wants to say. So it makes you think about what that song should be, and not, I'm going to say this and this and then have the melody to it, which is great. I do that too, but starting out, just the guitar rhythm.
Wow, that's really cool, man. Well, you've come a long way in a very short amount of time, and I really look forward to seeing what you do in the next year, really, because
thank you so much.
It's really cool, and the connection to fishing is awesome. And the people that are listening to this podcast, you should definitely go check out this new album, The Game. It's fantastic, and he's one of us. He's a fisherman, and wants to be a guide, and cool. The whole thing's cool. So I really look forward to staying in touch and seeing what you do. And good luck in the next between now and October. I mean, I'm sure other stuff's going to pop up, but that's a very exciting schedule, and I just know some big things are going to happen for you. And I'm happy for it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on this. I was really excited.
All right. Great, man. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Okay, go get The Game, and we'll see you next week. All right. See ya.